Okay, so hi everyone. I'm here with Gifford Roberts. He's the author of the Dynamic Rodent. If you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My name's Gifford Roberts, as you said. I'm the creator of Dynamic Rodent, the writer of it as well. And I've just finished the second story, but we're putting the finishing touches on the cover at the moment. But I wanted to get more people to notice how cool, well, what I think is cool about my own character.
Yeah, that's I read the comic and it's a really good read. Do you want to tell us a bit about it, about the characters in the story?
Okay, well, okay, we start out with the character. The main character is a kid named Joey Blyton. He's a fourth grader and he's very lonely, doesn't have many friends. The one friend he had moved away, Militia, I believe. And he's one day he remember well, he early on in the story goes to bed saying, "Gosh, I'd give anything to be like those superheroes in the comics or something like that." I can't remember precisely. And then the next day on the way to school, he wanders into an abandoned factory, as you do, and gets somehow turned into a mouse boy, as you do. You know, normal stuff. And then he's rescued before, but he's also rescued from a falling thing from the ceiling and pushed into the device. So when he's rescued from that, he gets turned into the mouse boy. And then the kid that rescues him says, "Are you okay? Do you need to go to the hospital?" He's like, "No, going to the hospital's stupid. I feel fine. I'm going to become a hero, like in the comics." And it doesn't go quite the way he wants it to. But he learns quickly that people don't notice the that he's a mouse boy until he puts on his costume, and that's weird. And maybe there's something there to that. And then also he notices that apparently his claws as a mouse boy are too sharp to pick his nose. But that's a thing. I, I that's without giving away the ending. That's basically the beginning of the story. What
Yeah.
did you like about the comic?
For me, it kind of put me in mind of some of the. I mean, obviously, it's not. I wouldn't say the story is super kid friendly, but it put me in mind of some of the like the graphic novels I used to read as a kid. Um, that kind of not quite not quite childish, but not quite too adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and one of the things I specifically will never do in any of my stories will be having like nudity or sexual situations or cursing. So it
Yeah,
can be at least somewhat child friendly, but it does get a little violent though
yeah,
at times.
yeah. And one of the things I liked was because you read some of the comics like this, and there's a sense that someone's going to, they're going to kind of underwhelm the story at the end. But one of the things I liked about this was that it didn't. It just carried on the, on the track that it was on.
Yeah, the basically I've got like about 30, 40 stories written. The early stories, Joey is just still learning how to be a hero and constantly screwing up, and there are repercussions to that, and he's learning how to basically hero. This is not like where you suddenly are facing off against superpowered villains. It's just a real life evil twisted boyfriend of his babysitter that he has to deal with, and that unfortunately bad relationships lead to that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean it's a superhero origin story, but it's a superhero but grounded in kinds of situations that a kid would put up with.
Yeah, one of the things my current colorist has brought up, and she, by the way, just emailed me right before this and said, definitely give me the link as soon as it's posted. She wants to watch this, but she said that she considers this kind of a slice of life story with
Yeah,
a little bit of superhero in it.
I did actually want to compliment the colors because I think that was
Well,
probably my
she's the colors for the current one. This is a different. This is Macarena Duarte, who also did an excellent job.
Yeah, I think the that was one of the things that really stuck out to me was the colors, especially for the like the eyes, like the energy beams coming out of the eyes.
Yeah, that then the climb. Now I'm not sure who did that because at the very last about 10 or so pages, I was on a time crunch. So Geronimo, Cal, Caldora, and Macarena Duarte both did the coloring, but Macarena was the one I had most of the time. And when we were on a time crunch, she got her husband to help out. But yeah, the ending part really looks epic, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I don't know if you've noticed some of the little things in the background, like the ET knockoff Innie that he's a fan of, or the fact that the newspaper, the Pecking Order, got little trinkets of parts of like the world building, I think, and some throughout this. Another thing is you see a lot of Kentucky flags in this. I'm
Hmm.
not sure you're familiar with that. I don't know where you're from.
I'm English.
Where?
English,
Oh, okay. So you're probably not familiar with the Kentucky flag.
not too much now.
Well, that's interesting because the other YouTube interview I did was also with an Englishman
Oh, that
and
was
a Canadian
interesting.
as well.
Yeah. So, do you want to tell us how you came up with these characters, or how long you've kind of had them in your mind?
Okay. Well, Dynamic, and I can maybe send you a copy of the picture if you want to put it on the screen. But
Yeah.
there is, but Dynamic Rodent was originally a drawing I did in like fifth grade, I believe,
Yeah.
and it started out. You think it would be Ninja Turtle maybe? No, actually, it started out. I was trying to draw Yosemite Sam. Couldn't remember what he looked like. Then I was like, oh, kind of looks like a raccoon. I'll go with that. And then I was like, hey, it kind of looks like a superhero. So I added a cape and a little symbol based on what I remembered from Danger Mouse,
Hmm.
but different. And then I added some villains in the background, which I would call bat-winged roaches, and they've got knives and they're going to attack the superhero. It was very not the origin most people I would imagine do. It just was like a it worked out, but it was a lot of errors in drawing as a kid that led me to creating it. But then I started building on the world and it grew over. This is like, let's say, about 20 years worth of working on it. So it's been building.
So it's definitely got some inspiration in kind of Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, yes. And speaking of being English, an English Saturday morning cartoon somewhat too, with the Danger Mouse.
Yep. So,
One of the things, I'm sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
One of the things that I like that I've been influenced with the writing, and I think I'm not doing it as well as some people would appreciate. I noticed when I was in college, I went to a club called the Anime Club a few times, and we watched some Japanese cartoons that are later were on TV, but Naruto in particular. And what really struck me about those early episodes of it was how they mixed humor and drama and action. And I kind of wanted to do that with Dynamic Rodent, but it's hard, it's difficult to keep the tone correct. But I feel like Naruto really nailed it with the action and the drama and the comedy all interspersed, and it didn't feel like forced in any, well, some of them, but mostly worked out pretty well, I'd say. And I'm trying to do that sort of mixing like situational tone in Dynamic Rodent as well.
Yeah. So you definitely want it to go on for a good long time.
Yeah. And there's an ending that I have in mind. So I've been told you always need to have an ending in mind, even if it's a long series, so you
Yeah.
have something to build toward.
So is this would you consider this like a shared universe? Is there going to be spin-offs or anything like that, or is it just
No,
one series? Just one
just
series then?
one. Well, there's other characters, but there's only going to be one storyline. It's not going to be like a shared universe. I think that overcomplicates things. That's one of the I mean, it works for where it works, but I want to keep. It's going to get complicated enough, so I try to keep it somewhat grounded by not doing that, and kind of make it more somewhat, well, if you're from England, it wouldn't be local, but local for me, but with the Western Kentucky feel to it. The town he's from, Pekin, is the original name of my hometown of Paducah, Kentucky, and so I try to keep it somewhat grounded in some type of reality. So, I mean, it's already ridiculous enough as it is with a kid becoming a mouse boy and no one noticing. And also, that incidentally was originally like the idea was to kind of make fun of Clark Kent and taking off his glasses and being Superman. It's kind of where I originally came up with that idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to play on the classics.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be it's going to be very friendly for new readers.
Yeah. What I'm trying. Well, the first issue, yeah, it's an introduction. The second issue, I've learned that it's like just looking at comics over the years that you need a what happened last time little section to make sure people are up to date. Otherwise, they won't know what's going on. So that's been something I've thought about. And as far as the first issue goes, it sets up the rules of the universe. It sets up the how where he is like his as a hero, and he shows that he's got a lot of room to grow, and shows that he's somewhat stupid and naive at times.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think
that's sort of easier to deal with when it's a kid.
I think there's a lot of people who really like the more grounded and flawed hero as well. Makes it feel a lot more relatable.
Yeah, I'm looking through it right now. Uh, that there's when he notices that when his dad didn't notice that he was a mouse boy, he returns to his friend Cody and goes, "Hey, do I look like a mouse to you, or am I imagining things?" And Cody just says, "Of course, maybe your dad wasn't paying attention."
Mm-hmm.
And I also like that little side. It was like a wasn't relevant at all to the plot, but I still really like pointing this out because no one ever mentions this. The infomercial they're watching on TV. Do you like wasting your money on stupid things that don't work, but you saw it on TV? Then do we have a deal for you? I really like that.
Yeah, I like those kinds of things as well. Actually, I think it kind of brings the comic together a lot better. It's like the like the news broadcasts and Spawn and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And you'll notice he's got a little elementary school pennant, and the little symbol of his elementary school's logo is on his backpack.
Yeah. So it's a lot of Easter eggs and small details all the
Yeah,
way through. Yeah.
that'll hopefully come in like a usually. I've only had like one, I think, scene that this was relevant in, but I want to try and put some subtle foreshadowing in other comics as well. Whenever someone's reading a newspaper, you can see what's going on outside of that particular story a little bit. You're just judging from some of the titles and the headlines of the paper. I thought that would be a nice way of spreading things out, fleshing it out, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. So you said for the first comic, there's not like a big rogue gallery. It's just
No,
more.
there's not really a rogues gallery. There's just one abusive boyfriend, really, and uh, there's a couple gang members that don't even know what they saw and just like, huh, that looked like a kid in a wearing a towel for a cape, and just with a mouse mask. And then the other one was he tries to rescue some kid from a bully, and then the bully and the kid scream because he's dressed as Dynamic Rodent and they think he's a monster. So then the dad chases him with a shotgun. So, I mean, that's kind of the rogues gallery at the beginning of the series. Oh, that and the
So
abusive boyfriend of the babysitter.
so as the series go on, are you going to introduce some more recurring villains, or is it going to be like more situational?
Yeah, everyone's sort of in place. I don't want to get too much into it, but everything's pretty much set in place for the recurring villains to be in this series. everything's set up, but I wanted to keep a lot of things vague as far as what was happening and hopefully not noticeable until it's revealed. Then you can do a second read through and kind of see, oh, he did lay the groundwork there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. So you were telling me before that you had, I think you said about 30 scripts set aside.
I'd have to count, but something like that. I have like, I mean, these are like single space, narrow. I mean, they're about. Some of them are like one of them's like 75 pages of tight single space text. So I mean, there's a lot of writing that's gone on. One of the things come across a little bit of this is a little bit of a problem, but I decided long ago that I don't like the way scripts and comics worked. So I
Yeah,
like to do panel by panel descriptions, but I feel like it's good for the artist because they have the more artistic eye. I think I like the idea of them judging when the page should be separated.
yeah. I
So
think
that,
you definitely get a better comic when the artist has the control of the layouts, I think.
yeah.
So
But
you were
yeah,
telling us.
What's that?
I was just going to say you were telling us about the colorists before. Could you tell us about that
Oh yeah,
whole creative team?
the one for this story was Macarena Duarte. I think. I don't know how to pronounce. I may be mispronouncing that, and if I am, and you're watching, I apologize. You're amazing. Uh, I love the coloring in Macarena. Uh, if I remember correctly, while she was doing this, she was also had a more more higher paying job doing something with I think Digimon at the
Hmm.
time. So she's really talented.
Could you tell us about the rest of the team? Who's on the pencils
Yeah,
next?
well, I really wonder what happened to Millipede Lee, the artist. I haven't heard from that person. I still don't know if it's a girl or a guy. I'm assuming it's human, not millipede, but for all I know, it could be a bug. But Millipede Lee was an amazing person on this. Very much new to the genre, like I was, as far as getting one in print. Millipede really helped out, and I love the artwork. You can tell, and I remember we discussed this like over time because I kept telling him how I was impressed how the artwork was progressing. You can tell it kind of changed styles toward the end, where once Millipede got a little more like comfortable with the character. At first, if you look at like the first 3, 4, 5 pages, it looks like a story. Well, also I thought it was going to be black and white, but it looks like a different. It looks like a kid's storybook almost. I'd say, and then it looks more comic booky as you go on.
Yeah, yeah. I felt that way as well when I was reading it. It was a lot more felt a lot more kind of gritty in the earlier pages.
Yeah, okay, here we go. I'd say about page 7 is when it really switches over. I think that's when Millipede grew comfortable with it. That's where he remembers where he picks his nose because he gets embarrassed because the boys are making fun of him, and he's like, I don't remember my picking my nose doing that.
Did you meet the
Yeah,
whole
how
creative
many
team on?
superhero stories have nose picking?
True.
Hopefully, not many.
Yeah. Did you meet the
Um,
creative team on Reddit?
so did I meet them on Reddit? I think it was comic book collabs on Reddit. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Whichever
that's where I
one I
met.
got you, I think I found you on.
Yeah, that's it, and that's where I met my creative team as well. It's a great subreddit.
Now, I've lucked out and had a really good creative team right away. I don't know how hard it is to find them. This really came together well for me. I really like my team on the first one and the second one. I'm not sure how hard it usually is to find people. I just lucked out, I think.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some mixed stories about it. I had a pretty good and easy time with it as well, though. So it's a good subreddit. and definitely recommend it for anyone looking to get their own comic started.
Much. I mean, it's so much less hostile than parts of Reddit.
True, yeah. I mean, it helps that everyone's looking to, looking to work together, so it's a lot more cooperative.
I think I've had very good experience with the people I've hired from there and from that comic collab subreddit. I think they're very supportive of each other overall.
Yep,
Every now and
supportive
then
and
someone's a jerk.
yeah, supportive, and it's very professional as well.
Yeah, I can't say enough good about that. That and I think there's another one called Indie Comic where people highlight their own stories and such, and I like that subreddit too.
Yeah. So one of the things I was curious about was, what would you say, what comic books influenced you as a creator?
Well, I mentioned if you, I'm gonna count Naruto as a comic book. It's Japanese comic book manga, but it's still a comic book. It's
Yeah,
just a different culture's take on it. So I'd say them. And this next one will be weird because it doesn't really have much influence as far as the type of story, but just from what the creator I remember saying. But have you heard of Scud the Disposable Assassin?
I haven't.
Okay, I think he's one. I think the creator may be one of the people that does Rick and Morty or has something to do with that. But
Oh,
when
okay.
I was a kid in high school, I went to a convention, and I remember the creator saying something like at a Q&A that he had this really confusing, complicated universe of characters, which I had a separate comic that was much more in depth as far as politics and like a space opera. And he said he dropped that and just went more simple with and then that's how he found success with Scud. So I kind of simplified it and went back to Dynamic Rodent. So I thought that was good advice. And and as I mentioned earlier, I really like how Naruto and a lot of, honestly, Japanese manga does this with the mixing with the humor and the drama and the fighting. You don't see that in American comics usually. They're usually too serious, I
Yeah,
think.
I think that's definitely true. It's a lot of people in American comics really want to be like the new Alan Moore, and there's no sense of humor in their work.
Yeah, and it also depends on the title, I'm sure. I mean, you don't want too
Yeah,
much humor in some stories, but I feel like like overall, you're right. I don't like it. I wish they'd mix more humor in it every now and then because it makes the drama more serious and it makes the action more impactful when you get to have like little moments between the characters. You get to
yeah,
know and
definitely.
love them.
Yeah, definitely agree. So, would you say at the moment you're more into kind of Japanese manga or American comics, or an even split?
The comics I've been reading recently have been like indie comics, or in particular, like, the last big one I read was Shotgun Samurai, which is a like it started out as a webtoon and then they collected it. That one's one I like. I've not kept up with the recent Green Lantern, but I really like the Green Lantern that was who did that? The um,
The Rebirth one?
well, it started with Rebirth, but not the actual series Rebirth. It had a story called Rebirth. And then it was continued on by after that, it was continued by Robert Vendetti. I got his name on here.
Come a
Yeah,
bit closer to the microphone.
the Red Lanterns and the Black Lanterns. I like
You're
those
talking,
stories a lot.
you're talking about the Venditti run.
Well, the Venditti, and then there was a guy before, but I don't have the book. It has his name.
Pete Tomasi?
Um, Jeff Johns' run followed by Vendetti's run. I really
Yeah.
liked.
Yeah, I think Jeff Johns is probably the kind of the defining Green Lantern writer.
Definitely. And he did a lot of other good comics, which I've heard about but have not read.
Yeah. It's always like
I've
that,
heard
isn't it?
mixed. I've heard mixed opinions about his one with the Watchmen reboot, whatever the count. What was it?
Doomsday Clock.
Doomsday Clock. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of Watchmen, so I don't have that much interest in it. I feel it was too serious for itself, and it was kind of weird. And also,
Yeah.
I heard they pointed this out in Doomsday Clock, but the ending is kind of, without spoiling it, the ending of Watchmen, it really doesn't work as well as it seems to when you stop and think about it. And I think Lex Luthor points that out in Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, I think with Watchmen, I think it's a good story, but I do think it's kind of overrated. You know, a lot of people just like to hype it up, even if they haven't read it.
I did really like V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I think with Alan Moore, I think a lot of his more independent stuff was a lot better than the stuff he did at the big two.
Yeah. I still want to read his Youngblood one. I know Youngblood's not well known for being good, but he tried to make it actually have depth, I hear, in his story about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read Tom Strong. That was one of his better ones as well.
That's a Moore one, right?
Yeah, that's Alan
Tom
Moore.
Strong, that's Alan Moore, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Oh, you said it's one of
kind
his better ones. Yeah, I was okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got you.
More kind of in the style of like Flash Gordon and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I've also heard good things about his From Hell, but I've
I
not
haven't
read
read
it.
that one. Yeah, I haven't read that either. But yeah, I mean, I think he's one of those guys where people, they like the stuff that they can get their hands on, but they don't necessarily always go beyond that and look for the more obscure stuff.
Another, you mentioned, speaking of obscure, you did mention what comics I liked. I've not been reading them recently, but I've been a huge fan of Ninja Turtles as a kid. But as far as when I finally got into comics, I saw a crossover of this rabbit character with Ninja Turtles, and then I fell in love with Usagi Jimbo. I remember. I don't
Yeah, I
know
don't
if
know
you.
if you read. Yeah, I was going to say I don't know if you read Last Ronin, but we've had Eastman back on the book, and it's just been really fantastic.
And then there's Gru. I don't know if you've read that. That's more humorous.
I haven't read that though.
It's about a stupid barbarian warrior that everywhere he goes he messes up, and he'll like try to help out an army fight another army, and then they both die, both sides, and gets on a ship trying to get a job as a sailor, and the ship sinks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funnier than I make it sound, but yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Another what?
I just said, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, another Alan Moore story that I like was Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Her run on it. I read the first volume of it, first trade of it that I had.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's one of the better ones. And the earlier Len Wein series was pretty good as well.
I feel like what I think Alan Moore's best as far as with established characters when he reinvents them, but still keeping them who they are, but giving them a new, fresh way of looking at them. I kind of try to do that with Dynamic Rodent. I try to take a superhero comic with a basic, easy premise. What happens when you get a kid becomes like gets a chance to be a superhero, and then think Powerpuff Girls, but doesn't really go as well as that, and it's much more bad experiences. It's a lot harder for him to become a superhero than he thinks it is. I kind of got that idea of like twisting the take of things kind of a little bit from Alan Moore, I'd imagine, because he's done that a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Did it with
keeping what
Youngblood, Swamp Thing, Watchmen.
and yeah, he did a little bit of Spawn as well.
I didn't even know he wrote on Spawn. I think he wrote Wildcats though. Not read the Spawn one.
Yeah, I think he only did 2 issues of Spawn, I think. It was like
Okay.
issue number 8. Yeah, it was like issue number 8 or something.
I thought that was Neil Gaiman.
He did
Maybe
one
I'm
of them. There was like a revolving door of writers. It was Neil Gaiman, Frank Miller, Alan Moore. It was
Okay.
just like like every couple of issues there was a new writer on that.
Spawn was interesting premise, but I never read it past I had a few issues as a kid, and then he got a new costume and his Batman screwed up his face with a batarang, and then they kept that in the series, and that was about all. That's about the last time I saw Spawn in comic form. That was way back in the 90s.
Yeah, the current stuff's pretty good. They went through a pretty big slump in kind of around the 2000s, and they killed off Al Simmons, and they brought him back.
Well, he was already dead though.
Oh no, they fully took him out of the costume. They put someone else.
Oh, he wasn't even a player anymore.
No, he was gone for, I think it was like 50 issues.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but thankfully they did bring him back, and it's been a lot better since he came back.
That's like, I don't know, if they, for instance, if they'd ever maybe like broke Batman's back and replaced him with a character and then just had him as a new character for several issues and then brought the other Batman back for no. Yeah, it feels like that's comics.
Yeah, anything to get a good sales boost.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of comics do that.
Yeah, definitely at the moment when you've got all the relaunches where like every few years it's a new #1 for every series.
Yeah. It's usually the way it is with more established, like traditional, but when they're like creator owned, it's not as often that happens, I think.
Yeah, definitely when it stays in the hands of the creator and they can just keep it going for as long as they want.
Ninja Turtles, I mean, I know they're not creator owned anymore, but they do go through a lot of reboots.
Yeah, I think their longest run was like 120 issues
The
or something
longest
like that.
one run, I think, was their current run, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think so. That's up to like 120 or something.
Yeah, because before that, I remember the Archie one got up to 60 or so, and I think maybe 70, and I had a few Mirage issues. I didn't. Mirage issues were too serious sometimes. I like Return to New York though.
I haven't read that one. Mostly only read the original series and the current IDW stuff.
So you have read the original series. So you have read Return to New York.
I've only read the first 5 issues of the original series.
Oh, okay. Well, spoiler: Shredder comes back.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And is made of worms.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, how else do you come back to life but be made of worms?
Yeah, they did that with Jason Voorhees as well.
Oh, I've not seen all the Jason Voorhees ones. I had a set that had a few of them in it. I had a set of the first one without Jason Voorhees. Well, he was in at the very end when his mom was the killer. Spoilers. And I had then the first couple, and then he got the hockey mask after killing that guy on the lakeside. Yeah, those are interesting movies.
So one of the other questions I had about
Yeah.
Dynamic Rodent was, you said you're not going to do a shared universe, but is Dynamic Rodent the only comic that you plan on writing?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I've given up on my other idea. I'd mainly just want to do Dynamic Rodent. I may end up doing that space opera one day, but I've got so much of Dynamic Rodent written. Honestly, there's a lot of me in the character of Joey Blyton, so I feel like more attached to this one, and it's also my first comic creation too.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's a good thing to have to be able to relate yourself to the character. I think it means that you care more about the series and keeping everything, everything true to itself.
Yeah, I remember one of my father's friends once said, "I see a lot of you in Dynamic Rodent." And I was like, "No, no, I didn't become a mouse boy till high school."
So, where you were telling me before, where can people find the comic?
You can find it on indieplanet.com/Dynamic Rodent, I believe, or just Google Dynamic Rodent.
And you do have it in print as well as digital?
You can, well, if you go to that website, it's print on demand, so you can either buy a digital copy there or you can buy a print copy.
Okay,
And the print
that's
copy
pretty
is
good.
set at $5, and the digital is set at 99¢.
Well, I mean, for indie comics, I think $5 is pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
Because you're basically just paying for the cost of the shipping and then a little bit more
yeah,
on top.
well, yeah, basically, because I'm not making a profit. I want to get the character out there, so it's not like I'm doing this to make a profit on it. I'd like to make a profit, but that would come much later. I'd have to sell many more copies than that than I have right now.
Are you planning on keeping the whole thing self-published, or do you think you'll ever go to an indie publisher?
I'd like to do that eventually. That would be nice.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see.
Okay. So
Time will tell.
I'm gonna let you go here now.
All right.
Where can people
Sir.
follow you?
Well, I don't have social media, but you can definitely check out my comic on Indie Planet, and I'll be having a new release shortly on there.
All right.
And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
When will this go up online?
It should be up tomorrow around midday tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank
It's
you.
been an honor.
Yeah, it's been great for me as well. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.